And this person may look upon a role model and say, well, if somebody is a non-Muslim, it doesn't necessarily matter, again, as long as I'm looking up to that person for the right reasons. This term, and you find it a lot, just Google it just Google it and you'll see Islam and the West. Sometimes you get as a subtext to this, the clash of civilizations. I think this phrase, Islam and the West, is misleading. Why? Because Islam and the West, you get the impression of two separate identities. It should be Islam in the West. Islam is a universal religion, correct? Whether you go to the Far East, Africa, subcontinent, Middle East, wherever you go, Europe, the Americas, you find Islam. It's not a religion that is specific to a particular place and time. So it should be Islam in the West, not Islam and the West. And one scholar, Egyptian scholar by the name of Muhammad Abdul, who's very famous, a reformist, he made this very important statement, a very popular statement. He says, and this is back in the 19th century, I went to the West and I saw Islam but no Muslims. And I got back to the East and I saw Muslims but no Islam. So of course this is something that we definitely can learn from as well. Now again, just very quickly, I've probably got about 5 or so minutes left, going back to our children, because I'm trying to walk us through as they start to grow older and older. When they start getting to puberty, or even just slightly before that, as I mentioned earlier, we don't get to spend as much time with them as we would like. Another area that is very important for our children is their friends. When they start getting to that age where their friends are having more of an influence than we have, then the choice of friends is very, very important. Because a peer, you know, we hear this phrase, peer pressure. What do we mean by peer? Peer means somebody who is a friend, a colleague, somebody who's of an equal standing in society. And peer pressures. What are peer pressures? Peer pressures are when you are part of a group and that group starts to influence your behavior. And that obviously can be potentially very dangerous. If you are amongst a group who do things that go against Islam, then we need to be very careful, and of course us as parents need to be observant about what our children and who our children are interacting with. However, sometimes a peer group can actually be positive. In fact, we have a saying from Imam Ali alayhi salam, that if a Muslim is weak, he should make sure he is hanging around with those who are stronger. Because by hanging around with those who are stronger, they will have a positive influence on him. So this is something that we too can definitely learn from. And we have a famous saying from the Holy Prophet of Islam, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He says that Allah's hand is with the congregation. In other words, Allah likes big groups. And whenever an individual strays, then Satan snatches him like a wolf snatches a sheep from the flock. So us being together as Muslims will inshallah help us. And of course again, the friends that our children interact with are very important. The Holy Prophet of Islam likens a good friend to a perfume seller. Why? He says, when you go to a perfume seller, you're always going to benefit. How so? You're either going to get a gift. He's going to give you a little bottle of perfume that you can take away with you. If he doesn't give you a gift, you're going to buy some perfume off him and you're going to smell nice anyway. And you know what? If you don't buy anything and he doesn't give you a gift, you're still going to come out and the aroma of that perfume shop will still be with you. This is what a good friend is like for us. And so of course, all of these things will help us when, if we are ensuring this to be the case with regards to our children. And in Islam, and from the Quran as well, role models is something very, very important. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولُ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. Certainly you have in the Messenger of Allah a perfect example. So of course, alhamdulillah, from what we heard from the speeches today, we can see that we have loads of individuals, personalities who are role models for us. Of course, first and foremost is the Holy Prophet of Islam, peace and blessing be upon him. Now, the importance of the Sunnah, for example, is of course something that all Muslims believe in. Sometimes, some of our Sunni brothers, they hear Sunni, Shia, they think Shia means we're against the Sunnah, because the Sunni are the Sunnah. Of course, that is not the case. And both of us have the Holy Prophet as an example to follow. The difference, of course, is that for them, they also have the Sahaba, but for us, we have the Ahlul Bayt, who for us, of course, are infallible. So the best of examples will, inshallah, have the greater impact on an individual as opposed to examples that, you know, aren't as great as the Ahlul Bayt and the Holy Prophet of Islam, peace and blessing be upon them all. And of course, when we look at our first Imam, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, the reason why he is such a great individual is because he followed the Holy Prophet of Islam to the letter. In letter and spirit. In other words, he followed everything he did, but he also had the understanding behind it. That's why he was such a great individual. Sometimes we talk about how great he was on the battlefield, for example, how brave he was, how he was undefeated on the battlefield. And sometimes we have to be careful, because we sometimes get the impression, some of us, that the Holy Prophet of Islam wasn't so. That he kind of, if you like, needed Imam Ali alayhi salam to fight his battles for him. When in actual fact, Imam Ali alayhi salam says, when fighting was most intense, it was the Holy Prophet of Islam who was closest to the enemy. So we can see that the bravery of Imam Ali alayhi salam must have been influenced heavily by the Holy Prophet. And of course, we don't have time to go through it. If we look at the Holy Quran, we have many verses which show us that the Ahlul Bayt, peace and blessing be upon them all, are the best example after the Holy Prophet to follow. We have the ayat of Tathir, the ayat of Mubahala, the one about the poor, the destitute, and the freed slave, the one about Imam Ali alayhi salam in Ruku, giving his ring as zakat, and so on and so forth. I would like to end by mentioning, as our young brother mentioned, that we are in the days remembering the sacrifice of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And it's quite interesting how it is a period of us to mourn what happened to the Imam, but even more importantly, think about the amount of role models we mention on a daily basis during these days. Whether you take the first 10 days of Muharram or the first 12 days of Muharram, whether you're talking about after Muharram to Arba'in, we have a number of role models, one after the other, that we can call upon. Sometimes if you find some disaffected youths in society, it is claimed that, for example, they don't respond to, for example, as a young black guy, when I was growing up, role models, black role models were sportsmen and sportswomen or entertainers who were black. And it said those who are suffering today, the young youths who are suffering today, it is not as effective for them to see, for example, barristers or lawyers who are from a similar background to them. It is better, for example, if somebody was a gang member, let's say, his role model would be somebody who was an ex-gang member. So he comes to him and says, look, I'm an ex-gang member, but I've sorted my life out, etc., etc. Why am I mentioning this example? Because sometimes people say, oh, the story of Imam Hussein or Imam Ali alayhi salam or whoever, you know, they're infallible, I can't be like them. So, you know, sometimes people use this as an excuse. Who do you want to be like? Or what is your goal? And he says, I would like to be like you. The teacher turns around and says, you'll never be like me. The student thought, this guy is very proud. How dare he say something like that? Then the teacher explained to him, if you had aimed to be like Imam Ali alayhi salam or the Holy Prophet of Islam, then you could be like me, maybe even better than me. But if you aim just to be like me, then you're always going to fall short. It's the same example that we can use in our exams. If you aim to just pass it, then you might just pass it. But if you aim for an A star, or whatever it is nowadays, then you might get an A star or an A minus, or whatever it may be. So always try to aim as high as you can. And it is no mistake, no accident that on each of the 10 nights of Muharram we focus on a different individual, because they are all role models for us all. And you know, beauty of the message of Imam Hussein alayhi salam is that whether it's age, our youngsters here can choose an individual to focus on, because we have a 6-month-old baby that was martyred on the plains of Karbala, all the way up to a companion who was in his 80s. Whether it's your social status in society, you have the free slave John, or you have somebody like Habib ibn Mudahir. Wherever we look, no matter what we focus on the plains of Karbala, we can all find somebody who we can relate to. On that point, I'll finish. Thank you very much for listening. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.